I had never imagined a wedding reception could feel like a battlefield. The air in the hall was thick with laughter, clinking glasses, and the faint scent of roses from the centerpieces. Guests milled about, exchanging congratulations and stories, oblivious to the storm brewing inside me. I was James, 38, and tonight was meant to be one of the happiest nights of my life. Or at least, that's what I had thought. Olivia, my wife of 8 years, had been radiant all evening. Her dress hugged her figure perfectly, and her smile sparkled under the chandeliers. I had spent weeks planning every detail of this anniversary celebration. Every seat, every napkin fold, every flower arrangement had been meticulously chosen to reflect our journey together. And yet, despite the perfection surrounding us, a knot had been growing in my stomach since the moment the first guest had arrived. It started innocently enough. Olivia had a habit of joking in a way that sometimes cut a little too close. I had laughed it off countless times, attributing it to her sharp wit. But tonight, her joke landed differently. She had just raised her glass to the crowd, her eyes meeting mine with a playful glint. "You know," she said, leaning in so only I could hear, "sometimes I think I should have married my ex instead." The room erupted in laughter. Some guests clapped, others chuckled. I could feel every head in the room turned toward us. My glass of champagne trembled in my hand. I swallowed hard, my throat suddenly dry. The joke was not subtle, and it was not small. It hung in the air like a guillotine, slicing through joy I had been trying so desperately to hold on to. I sat in silence. Not because I didn't understand it was meant to be humorous. I understood perfectly. That was the problem. The words were a dagger disguised as a laugh. My mind raced, sifting to the past few years, trying to find a moment where I had misstepped, some clue I had missed that would explain this cruel jest. I remembered the late nights I had worked to support her dreams, the weekends I had spent planning little escapes and surprises, the countless times I had been patient when she was distant or preoccupied. And yet, here we were. The laughter faded slightly as the guests sensed my hesitation. Olivia, still smiling, reached across the table and lightly tapped my arm. "I'm kidding," she said, her tone airy, dismissive. But the weight of the joke had already anchored itself deep inside me. I wanted to speak, to defend myself, to remind her and everyone present that loyalty wasn't a joke. But the words lodged in my chest, heavy and unformed. I focused on my hands, resting on the table, trying to steady the trembling that betrayed me. Around us, the celebration continued, oblivious. I could hear snippets of conversation, clinking cutlery, the hum of music from the small band in the corner, but it all sounded distant, muffled. The room had become a stage, and I was both actor and audience, trapped in a scene I did not want to perform. As the evening wore on, my thoughts spiraled. I recalled conversations where she had dismissed my feelings as oversensitivity, moments where her attention drifted toward her friends or her phone instead of me. I remembered late nights I had stayed awake, hoping to bridge a gap I could not articulate, striving to keep our connection alive while feeling increasingly invisible. And now, here she was openly joking about leaving me for someone else. I tried to find solace in the music, the soft piano notes that floated to the hall, but even they seemed taunting. Each note reminded me of the tenderness we once shared, now distorted into irony. I could see the reflection of myself in the polished surface of the table, composed on the outside, but inside a storm of disbelief and hurt. When the toast ended, Olivia leaned back in her chair, laughing lightly at something one of our friends said. I wanted to reach for her hand, to reconnect in some way, but I didn't. My fingers hovered just above the table, trembling slightly, suspended between reaching and retreating. In that moment, silence became my shield. No one noticed, or perhaps they did, and chose to ignore it. I remained still, my jaw tight, eyes fixed on a point across the room. The joke was over. The laughter subsided. But the damage had been done. My mind continued to churn, piecing together every past slight, every overlooked gesture, every moment where I had felt unseen. By the time the evening wound down, I was exhausted, not from socializing or hosting, but from the weight of unspoken words, unacknowledged pain, and a realization I wasn't ready to face. As the guests began to leave, Offering hugs and goodbyes, I remained seated, staring at the remnants of champagne in my glass. My body was present, but my mind was elsewhere, tangled in questions of love, loyalty, and the thin line between jest and betrayal. The room emptied, leaving only the faint echo of laughter and the soft hum of the piano. Olivia approached, her smile still playful, as if unaware of the silence I carried. She bent slightly, her hand brushing mine lightly, and whispered, "You're too serious sometimes, James. You need to lighten up." I nodded, offering a polite, measured smile, but inside, I felt the shift. Something fundamental had changed, and I knew, deep down, that tonight would linger in my memory not as a celebration of love, but as the night laughter became a weapon and silence became my refuge. The next morning, the sunlight felt unusually harsh as it cut through the blinds. I woke up in our bedroom, alone, the remnants of last night's tension still lodged in my chest. Olivia was nowhere to be seen, and I realized I hadn't heard a sound from her since I had gone to sleep. That silence, so familiar now, pressed against me like a weight I couldn't shrug off. I found her in the kitchen, scrolling through her phone, sipping her morning coffee as though nothing had happened. I swallowed my unease and tried to force casual conversation. "Morning," I said softly. Her eyes flicked up, offering a fleeting smile before returning to the screen. "Morning," she replied. The brevity of her tone stung more than any argument could have. Over the next hour, I attempted to navigate the day as if it were normal. I tidied up, made a few calls, and even tried joking lightly to see if I could pierce through the wall that had sprung up between us. Every attempt met with polite indifference. The joke from last night, now replayed in vivid detail in my mind, no longer felt funny. It was a signal, a marker of distance that had quietly grown over the years. By mid-afternoon, I knew I couldn't ignore it any longer. I needed clarity, a conversation that didn't dissolve into laughter or deflection. I found her in the living room, pretending to read a magazine, though I could see the phone peeking from beneath the pages. "Olivia," I started, my voice steady. "Last night, about that joke, I need to understand what you meant." She looked up, blinking slowly, as if surprised I would take her lightly tossed words seriously. "James," she said, almost sighing, "it was a joke. Lighten up. You're making it bigger than it is." But I could see it in her eyes, an honesty she wasn't ready to voice. The joke had a kernel of truth, one she couldn't fully deny. And the moment I realized that, a knot formed in my stomach. This wasn't a misunderstanding. It was a reflection of something that had been simmering beneath the surface for years. I paused, gathered my thoughts carefully. If it's just a joke, then why does it feel like a message? Like something you're trying to tell me about us? The question hung heavy in the room. For a fraction of a second, her face faltered. A shadow of guilt crossed her features before she masked it again with a polite, unreadable expression. "You're overthinking it," she said, closing the magazine and standing up. "I didn't mean anything by it. Let's just move on." I shook my head, my voice firm but calm. "No, Olivia. I need honesty. Not jokes, not dismissals. Have you ever thought about us in the way you said last night? About being with someone else?" Her eyes flicked away, and that small avoidance confirmed everything I had feared. The truth had been hidden behind laughter and casual remarks, but now it was unmistakable. "James, she started, then stopped, swallowed, and finally whispered, "Maybe I have." The words cut to me like a cold blade. I stood there, stunned, processing confession that had been disguised for years in jokes and distance. My mind flashed back to every late night I had stayed up, every thoughtful gesture, every attempt to nurture the bond we had once shared. All of it had been met with detachment, a quiet withdrawal I had ignored, hoping it would pass. I walked to the window, staring at the street below, feeling the room shrink around me. When I turned back, she was watching, her eyes wide, searching for some reaction. "James, I didn't mean to hurt you," she said, her voice small, but the damage was done. "I know," I replied, my tone steady, almost eerily calm. "And I forgive that you're being honest now. But I can't ignore what this means for us." My hands rested on the windowsill, gripping it as if to anchor myself. "We've been drifting for years, Olivia. I stayed, hoping you'd come back to me. But it seems you never really were." The room was silent, except for the faint hum of the refrigerator. I could feel the shift, the moment when the person I thought I knew became a stranger. There was no anger, not really, just clarity and the bitter taste of reality. "I think we need space," I said finally, "time apart to figure out if there's anything left here worth saving." She nodded slowly, eyes brimming with unspoken emotion. I understand." Over the next few days, we navigated an awkward, tense distance. Conversations became measured, polite, practical. I returned to focusing on work, on routines, and on grounding myself in reality rather than in dreams that had long since faded. Every encounter was a reminder of how fragile trust could be, how easily laughter could mask deep truths. Then one evening, something unexpected happened. Olivia approached me with a small box, her hands trembling slightly. Inside was a simple necklace, a symbol of memory of the years we had shared. "For the good times," she said softly. I took it, holding it in my palm, feeling the weight of shared history. No words were necessary. The gesture acknowledged both the beauty and the fracture of our relationship. That night, I lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, reflecting on the journey we had shared. The joke she had made, once a spark of pain, now felt like a signal that had guided me to clarity. I realized that love wasn't always about fireworks and grand gestures. Sometimes it was about truth, honesty, and knowing when to let go. By morning, I felt a strange sense of peace. The storm of laughter and silence had passed, leaving a calm clarity in its wake. I had learned a lesson I would carry for life. Sometimes, the hardest moments reveal the deepest truths, and in facing them, we find the strength to move forward, whether together or apart. And as I stepped outside, feeling the crisp air on my face, I knew that whatever came next, I was ready.